the 416, the interview series, and today we're sitting down with Jake Sutton, a good friend of mine, and Cindy's behind the camera. And so, Jake, let's just first introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the work here that you're involved with.
So yeah, Jake Sutton, 38 years old and some change. 40's right around the corner. Yeah, born and raised here in Georgia. I'm from Adairsville, north corner of the state, and this is Marietta, which is considered North Metro Atlanta. So this is going to be a very transient area. I'm the pulpit preacher here, pulpit minister. That's my title. Under some great shepherds here at Piedmont Rd. They're very efficient. They tell me, "Hey, we just need you to preach," and so it's a great congregation. They let me. They very much let me preach. It's a blessing. I've had them physically stand behind me, when I've spoke a couple of times, and that's been some good things because they want some things said, and they want the congregation to know that they're 100% behind what's being said. But yeah, this is Piedmont Rd. She's actually one of the oldest churches in the state. Wow. I think 1837 maybe, and it was first known as Pleasant Grove. But yeah, she's an older congregation. She's but very healthy, very sound. I'm thankful for that. I knew of this church growing up as a kid in Adairsville, and so it was very much country comes to town when I got here. And there's enough Southerners in the room that they appreciate my vernacular and my papa's Appalachia talk, old farmhand. But yeah, no, I've been preaching now for what is this, 12 years now, and yeah, I've spent 5.5 of that here, so that's been great. I was in South Georgia before this, and then Collierville when I was in school in Memphis, and so. But yeah, this congregation is the best blessing for me in my ministry, and in the ministry that I know as of yet.
And I know that through the years we've talked about the work here, and we've talked about your preaching here, and that was one of the things that you've always kind of brought up and made the point. My elders stand behind me, and 100% they're with me, and they want me. And will encourage, I'm sure that, they've encouraged you to preach certain lessons or something like that. And hey, we need to let the members know and deal with this. And it's very proactive, seems like.
It is. So every year I'll take sometimes 4 days, sometimes a week sabbatical from local work. And I just plan for the next year. Mm-hmm. And we did that a little earlier this year because we're putting out an Outlook book for 2025, letting everybody know what all's going on with the church. And so I had to get my sermons in a little quicker this year, but yeah, they, I meet with them and I say, what do you know that we need? Yeah. What am I missing? What am I at 38 missing that you men in this room know that I don't know? And I let that serve as a barometer for my preaching. And so they're very proactive. We're very proactive when it comes to the preaching and teaching. Great educational work here.
Yeah, and I want to mention that too as well. At the very end of this video, we're going to show a video tour of the education wing, and I'm excited about it. You showed it to me a little while back, and Cindy got to see it today, and so we videoed, and I just think it's amazing what the congregation here has done, and I know that with the leadership of the elders, that's tremendous to think about. Okay, how important is education when it comes to the Lord's church?
Oh yeah, and from the cradle to the grave, almost we would say it's Paul Spurlin's over education here, and he has been for about 3 years now, and which has been great. But he just stepped right into a well-oiled machine, and so yeah, the downstairs is phenomenal. The education wing's phenomenal. Our teachers are great. But yeah, I mean, not just our education, but even our elders want to make sure that there are several classes offered for everybody.
Right.
So like this is a Wednesday evening, and there'll be a major class in the fellowship hall on study of Revelation, and then I have prayer class tonight, and then so there's 4 or 5 classes for folks to to say, I need a smaller class right now. I need more prayer right now, or I need to study something textual right now. So it's kind of, we let people kind of gauge where they are and offer the things we need to offer. That Ephesians 4, equip the saints for the work of the ministry.
Yeah.
So we don't just say, here's the only thing you're going to eat this week, and too bad.
Right.
Thankfully we're blessed with a lot of educators and a lot of people who love the Lord, and so it just works out that way.
Yeah. So it's like a buffet. So
it is.
You get to choose.
It is. You want to sample this week? Go here next week.
I think that's great. Let's just shift gears for a moment. We'll come back to the congregation in just a minute, but let's talk about Memphis School of Preaching. A love that we have, certainly our instructors and our education comes from Memphis School of Preaching. So tell us about what year you graduated, and tell us something about your experience there, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Went in at 12, got out at 14, and was able to preach at Collierville, like I said, while I was there. The 2 best years of my life.
Yeah.
As far as ministry is concerned, because it was Memphis is, it's like putting your mouth to a fire hydrant.
Yeah, it is.
You're going to miss more than you get, but thankfully with good notes and other brothers, and I'm in 2 different text groups with 4 different preachers in each one of those, and I'll say, like today, I had a friend of mine, Denny Howell up at Ottawa. He said, "You got anything on anointing?" And I was like, let me peek. And of course I just sent it out to those 2 groups, and it didn't take long, and somebody caught something, but yeah, I was there in 12, 13 and 14, and so it was, love the school, love passion for preaching and for preachers and for education, and there's a lot of preaching schools out there. And when folks say, I want to preach, what do I need to do? I ask them, what exactly do you want to do? Because there's some schools that's designed to give people a broader sense of the kingdom, and then there's some schools that's specifically for preaching. It's like if you go to a mechanic and you got a transmission issue, you want to get a guy who specializes in transmissions.
Right.
And so, but anyway, no, two best years of my life. Love the instructors, miss them, call them every now and then, check in, and but I had Garland Elkins, Curtis Cates, and some of those, and can't call those boys no more.
I know that's tough. So you kind of mentioned that, and I would guess then that's probably a highlight, thinking about the instructors. But you might have another something you want to share too, just a highlight some of those guys that you're in school with and things.
Sure. I mean, there's all kinds of stories. Some things you can't tell. You have to go to your grave with.
That's right.
And because all their hair will fall out if you tell the story. But yeah, no.
Why do you think mine's so gray?
Yeah. Well, that's why Cindy likes it. But no, I think about. I mean, I brought up Curtis Cates Sunday morning in my sermon, and because we're preaching on the spiritual war, and there's some fights that we're not called to, that we don't need to fight. That we don't need to be involved in. And so I brought up the tar babies. And punching tar babies and getting stuck, and and he'd just say, "Brother," you remember how he was.
Yep. He was good about trying to remind us, you don't have to get in the middle of everything. You just need to stick to your work. And then when your work's done, you shake the dust off and you move. Yeah. You move on. And because there's plenty of other work to be done. And, you can't just stop and linger over the past as well. And he was good about kind of giving us some of those wisdom nuggets. Thinking about you've got to keep moving forward. Yeah.
And sometimes that's with the congregation. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you outgrow a congregation.
Sure.
I see some preachers do that and outgrow their leadership. And, that's just one of those things in God's providence. He's going to take care of the faithful.
Yeah, he will. Absolutely. Well, let's shift back to Piedmont Road here for a moment. And let's think about, if you were telling somebody who's either traveling through the area and wanting to stop, find a congregation, or they're moving to the area and they're looking for a congregation, and what would you tell them so that they would check out Piedmont Road?
Sure. Well, obviously all the things we mentioned before, and that it's a sound eldership, and we have a guy who serves on staff here, but he's also one of our elders. He takes care of all the grounds, and so you walk into this place and it's manicured.
Yeah.
Because I know you've been there. I have too, especially in both of y'all's work now. You go into a congregation and you think, who sweeps here? And if they're not taking care of these things, they're not going to take care of my soul. And so just off the bat, you walk in, you think this place is aesthetically kept up,
Yeah.
up to date. And we live in a world where that matters on some
Yeah.
level. There's some fundamentals there. But this is, like I said, North Atlanta. It's not so consumed and so busy. But there's enough near here. Doesn't take long. I mean, we're 12 minutes from the Braves.
Right.
So on average, we have about, I don't know about the average this year, but on average, our averages have been about 20.2 visitors a week. So that's a lot of folks who are doing, Lake Point Station ball tournaments, and they're fishing at Lake Allatoona, or they're glamping in an Airstream,
Oh, I know all about that.
But the Braves, the Falcons, the Hawks. I mean, it's Sports Central down this way. A lot of festivals, a lot of. We just finished our state fair here in Marietta. We have a booth that's there, So, and this is, if you want to go to a congregation where you can kind of just fall in the cracks, this is not the place.
Yeah.
You walk in and there's 5 greeters with name tags on, and that changes every couple of weeks. There's different people. There's something for everybody here. Not only are you going to get fed educationally, not only is everything going to be taken care of biblically, but when you walk into a church building and you immediately feel good,
Yeah.
or warm, or thankfully folks have wrote cards after they visited and said that's the friendliest church I've ever been to. And I want that to stay that way,
Yeah.
and that starts with me, starts with the leader,
That's intentional.
It has to be, because if you're not intentional, it won't happen. It's like evangelism. If we say everybody's invited, that means nobody's invited.
Right.
You got to be targeted with certain things.
That's exactly right. Is there a difficulty because of the area? Because it is Atlanta, it is, so is there a difficulty that makes it hard maybe for evangelism, or hard for those things?
Yeah, so like when I was in South Georgia, they were real big on the newspaper down there. Up here, nobody's on the newspaper.
Right.
So I don't know that it's difficulty. I think it's just you have to change with your demographics. You got to find out what works and what sticks. And so, there's local schools. This is a suburbanish urban area. So there's schools, there's communities, there's everything around here. So our outreach is different. There's not much benevolence, like our Lord did. He would go in and take care of something for somebody. And Cobb County is the most affluent county in the state of Georgia.
Right.
So a lot of big money in this county. So those kinds of things aren't the approach. Now it's more of, hey, rich people need Jesus too.
Yeah.
You've got your 401k and your Blue Cross Blue Shield, but you need Jesus, because
Right.
at some point something will fail you. But no, I mean, as far as difficulties, I don't think anything major. You do have some left-leaning folks. You do have some folks who they have truth is subjective. It's not objective. It's whatever they make it. So there is more of a liberal thought in bigger
Right.
cities. But one of the great things about that is it encourages us to learn how to talk to folks, learn how to take the gospel to people, more than just going the old conventional door knocking way.
Right.
You just got to learn different ways to get to folks.
That's exactly right. And so in the 416 Ministries, Cindy and I are trying to obviously keep preachers preaching, encourage preachers, encourage relationships among preachers and congregations, and even elders and preachers as well too. So that we do keep preachers preaching, because that's certainly important. And that's part of the work that we're trying to do. Do you have anything that's encouraged you through the years, to keep preaching, so that we might share that as well?
Sure. Well, I think of one particular a couple of instances. Probably one of the hardest times of my life. That was one of the occasions where the elder stood behind me physically and told the church, "Hey, this is our man. We're not going anywhere." And but wasn't too far from that. Some of our mutual friends, Scott and Melissa Kane, they came by the church building just to visit one day, and Scott told me one time, he said, "You run with horses. You run with horses," and he's referring to an old Jeremiah passage that if people tire running, on a regular basis, how are warriors going to war with horses? How are they going to run like horses? And so he was just saying, you run with horses.
Yeah.
You can do this. And so having the right people in your corner, thankfully, which is my leadership, and I've got 1,500 sweet old grannies and mothers and brothers out there. And we have a real good men's ministry here. And it's one of those things where not every man is invited, because not every man of the church here can hear everything, and so these are some guys who at the beginning stepped into the men's ministry, a couple of years ago, and they were on the fringe, but now they're serving as deacons. And so it's just, that goes back to that word intentional. All of us are on the same playing field, and we're all wounded in some way. And just here recently, I remember one of my elders telling me, he said, I'm thankful for the things that you go through. It makes you more relatable as a person, rather than some preachers who were up here and don't really know what suffering is. They don't know they don't know how things are in the real world. And so just to have that's been great.
Yeah. I know Cindy has a question as well.
So, well, one thing that listening to all of that, I feel like as a congregation, Piedmont Rd is knit together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of our 416 that we want to edify, to find your place, and y'all are helping them do that, and I think that's wonderful. But when someone is in the area and they're visiting Atlanta, they come here maybe for services on a Sunday, where could they go for dinner or lunch or something like that would be a local
Sure.
place?
I would highly suggest a place called Henry's. Henry's is Cajun. The guy's straight out of LSU. He just sold the place. He's from Louisiana, literally. He just sold the place, and he's been on Guy Fieri's show. He's been on Food Network. And Henry's is Cajun. And what's great, you go in there, and my dish that I get is called the chicken ooh la la. Okay. And you go in there, and what happened was when he opened up the place, and this is downtown Ackworth, probably 15 minutes from here, not far. He opened up the place. A journalist from the AJC, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, came in, and he was doing here's this guy, got all this education. He's certified chef. He comes in and he's trying dishes, and he starts eating this chicken dish, and he was like, what's this called? And he couldn't either pronounce whatever Henry said, or he didn't know how to spell it or something. He just said, I'm just going to call it chicken ooh la la. And so it stuck with Henry, and Henry calls it chicken ooh la la. And but Henry's is great. And it's really what can you not find around here?
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's so busy, and everything is here. But that's probably the place I'd go.
And what about coffee? I have to ask about coffee.
Sure. Well, it just depends on how bougie you are. You can do Black Rifle here.
Black Rifle.
Yeah, Black Rifle's
That's
here.
my favorite.
Of course, Starbucks and Dunkin', and but there's some local roasteries. Marietta Coffee Company, it's good. It's not far from here. But just a few holes in the walls. But mostly your mainstream folks.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, this is 416, the interview series. Of course, we'll have all the links in the description below for Piedmont Rd. And if you have any questions, certainly we'll get you in touch with Jake. But I hope that you'll come by here and visit. This is a wonderful congregation, and they're very active. And if you're looking for a congregation and you're in this area, this is where you want to be if you want to do the Lord's work.